I'm back! And straight away, to address all of the rumors that have been running rampant on social media recently, no, I did not die from complications during penis enlargement surgery. Surgery went really well, actually. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about today's video. Dehancer. You saw it in the title. It's a weird word. It's a made-up word. What is it? Well, it's a plugin for Davinci Resolve that aims to fully mimic the process of shooting, developing, and scanning or printing onto film. Why is that exciting? Well, maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know what you're into. But for me, it's really exciting because I love shooting on film. All kinds, all formats. I mean, look at this. Look at this medium format monstrosity. This is for a future video. Shooting on film, especially motion picture film, can be really freaking expensive and not always practical. If you're shooting a music video with a tiny budget, you're not going to have room in the budget to shoot and develop and scan film. And sometimes you just need a quick turnaround and you don't have the time to deal with all of that. For instance, a single roll of Super 8 film, this is 500T, costs anywhere from $35 to $50 depending on the stock that you get. A single roll of 16mm film, a 100-foot roll, can cost anywhere from $60 to $80, and that only gets you about 2 minutes worth of footage. And you have to pay to get it developed and scanned, which is going to cost at least another $55 per roll. Obviously, there are ways to get these costs down, like bulk loading smaller rolls for yourself or developing your own film, but shooting on film is always going to be more expensive than shooting digitally on a camera that you already own. But if you're like me and you still want that sweet, sweet film look, ooh, what are the options? By the way, if you're getting bored at any point, feel free to use the chapter thing in the description to skip ahead to any part that sounds interesting to you. Also, it's worth noting that Dehancer did give me a license to make this video to try out their software, and they did so for free. But I'm not bought that easily. What are the options? I've been using a plugin called Filmconvert for a number of years now, and I still use it. I really like the way that it produces grain and reproduces different sizes of film, like 16mm, and it has those presets. But I do have to say that I haven't found it easy to get a nice, good color grade quickly. It takes a lot of work, and I end up using Lumetri or some other tool along with it. I will say also that I'm using the original version of Filmconvert. I've heard the newer version, Nitrate, is much better and has a lot better color grading and color correcting tools built into it, but I don't have that one, and I'm not going to buy it just for this video. So, full disclosure, I'm using the older version of Filmconvert. Another tool that I like to use to emulate film or get close to that is Magic Bullet, the Magic Bullet suite, and part of that is Magic Bullet Looks and Magic Bullet Film. And it's actually, I think, a step up from Filmconvert in that it has a lot more tools available to help mimic the imperfections of using different film stocks or vintage lenses or different types of cameras and stuff like that. It does take a lot of tweaking to get to the perfect look. I do find that I'm able to get there and that I'm able to get some really great colors and really great grades and looks, but it does take a lot of tweaking because it's such a robust piece of software. But I recently discovered Dehancer, and despite the fact that it only works in Davinci Resolve, and I'm a Premiere Pro boy myself, I've been loving it so far, absolutely loving it. So I'm not going to spend this whole video going into the details of all three of these plugins because there are already tons of other videos on YouTube doing that, much better than I could, but also this video would be insanely long. But I am going to take a clip that I shot on my Sony a7 IV for a recent music video I shot with Marlon Craft, and I'm going to use it in each of these three pieces of software, these plugins, to try to mimic and try to get as close as I can to the 16mm look. And we'll also compare it to a clip that I shot in the same location, in similar lighting, similar framing on the same day, using actual Kodak Vision 3 500T film on an actual 16mm camera. So I'm going to show you the actual film clip first, and then I'll show you the other three in a random order. There will be a number in the bottom right corner. Pay attention, see which one you like the best, see which one looks the most accurate and or looks best to your eye, and then before I reveal which ones are which, let me know in the comments below which one you prefer. All right, let's take a look. can tell me in the comments again what you think, but for me, it was no question. So number 1 was Filmconvert, number 2 was Dehancer, and number 3 was Magic Bullet. To me, Dehancer number 2 just by far looks the best. The other two don't look bad, but Dehancer just, I think, blows them out of the water. And honestly, I spent less time getting to that point using Dehancer than I did in Filmconvert or in Magic Bullet looks. Dehancer just really nails the tonal contrast of film and the imperfections to me. And part of that, I suspect, is how they're approaching how they emulate film and the colors and such. But before I get to that, let's get onto the computer and open up Davinci Resolve. Whoa, I bet you've never seen that effect before. That was cool, huh? Anyway, I just wanted to give you a heads up. The audio is going to get a little wacky from here on out for the rest of the video, unfortunately. Sound a little robotic. Not sure what happened, but this take that you're listening to is actually the second time I've recorded this already. And I just don't have the energy in me to do it a third time. You're looking at the guy who's only uploaded one YouTube video in the last 6 months. Do you think I'm going to take the time to record this for a third time? Sorry. It's not that bad. You'll get used to it. Don't worry. But I just wanted to give you a heads up and not just completely ignore it. But anyway, back to the video. Let's go into my Hans Zimmer project here. Again, the footage that I'm showing you is footage from a music video I shot with a rapper and artist here in New York called Marlon Craft. Marlon is an amazing artist. He's a friend of mine as well. I've made a ton of videos with him, and if you're into hip-hop, and even if you're not, you should definitely go check him out because he's amazing. And then if for no other reason than to check out the music video that I'm featuring here with these clips. So I'll leave a link for that as well in the description and in the top right corner. Here we have, I'm on the color tab already. I have all of my clips separated. Again, if you're not sure how to do this, look on YouTube and I'll have a video linked as well to show you how to separate these clips easily once you export it from Premiere. So let's take a look at this clip here, which I really love. Obviously, we used the Joker from The Dark Knight as a reference for this shot, hanging out of the side of the car. Let's go up here to this node and reset it. Search for Dehancer, drag it and drop it, and it doesn't look that much different. In fact, it looks worse. But that's because we need to select the input. So if you are using footage that isn't flat, isn't log, you can just choose Rec 709. For instance, if you're using cell phone footage or something like that, you can just choose your source as Rec 709. But I am actually going to choose camera, go to the vendor. I'm shooting on Sony. If you're shooting Canon or Red or whatever, you can choose that. They don't have, the A7 IV is a brand new camera, so they don't have the A7 IV profiles in here yet, but it's basically the same as A7S III. So I'm going to choose that, and I'm going to choose S-Log3, S-Gamut3 Cine, and I believe I shot this at 12,800, that native ISO. There's not a huge difference between the two, but I like that they allow you to select it. So you have options to adjust the exposure and the temperature and all that kind of stuff, but we'll come back to that if we need to. First, I'm going to go down. I'm going to turn off the film grain just to help us speed up the process. And then we'll come back up here and choose our film stock that we want to emulate. So I'm going to go with Kodak Vision 3 500T. And still looks a little flat, doesn't look great, but we're not done yet. I do want to highlight first that they have a ton of different options for film stocks to emulate, and not just motion picture film stocks. In fact, most of them are not. They have all these AGFA, CineStill, which CineStill is just Vision 3 film anyway. But they got all these Fuji ones, a lot of Fuji stuff that is no longer for sale, like the Reala and Natura and Pro 400H, rest in peace. But you got a lot of different options here. All the Kodak ones, Kodachrome, Ektachrome, if you want to have that that slide film look. But we're going to go for Vision 3 500T. You can also choose to emulate what it would look like if it was pushed or pulled. Also, I want to mention, if you're looking over here at the monitor, you'll see that I have these the letterbox, the bars baked in, and so when I change the colors, the black bars are changing as well. If your whole video is letterboxed, you should just render it out at the resolution that makes sense, so you don't have any black bars. But if you have a mixture of full frame footage and letterbox footage, and you want this black to remain the same, you can always come in here and go to the edit and go to the clips and crop them using the cropping here, and that'll make sure that it remains true black. But anyway, we don't want to push or pull this film, so I'm going to reset that. This expand, I think, is really great. We'll come back to that. But first, I want to come down here to print without getting too much into it. When you shoot something on film, what you see in the movie theaters, if they're using a film projector, is not that same film. They first have to, especially if you're shooting on color negative film, they first have to transfer it to a print film so that then they can use that print film to project. A ton of Hollywood movies use the print film that is Kodak 2383. There are a bunch of other print films. There's Fuji ones, there's newer Kodak print films, but a lot of your favorite films used the 2383 print film. And if they didn't, if it was shot digital, a lot of times they'll still use a LUT that emulates this so that they can see what it looks like, or so that they can have a similar look. So watch what happens. It's selected linear right now. Watch what happens when I switch it to 2383. Bam! We get some much better colors. We get nice contrast here. And then this is where I like to adjust the white. So this target white is not a temperature slider, but it does allow us to sort of emulate the type of bulb we would be using if we were actually printing this film from one to the other. And down here is where I like to adjust the exposure. The exposure is the way that it adjusts exposure down here in the print section, as opposed to in the input section with the exposure compensation. I think it works a little bit better and makes the image look a little bit better. So if I wanted, I could brighten this up a little bit. And then you also have tonal contrast, color density, saturation, all that kind of stuff. This color head section, I'm not going to get too into it, but essentially when you are printing one film to another, or if you're doing darkroom prints of still photos, you have essentially a light that shines through the negative or the positive onto your print paper or film. And those color heads have different filters to allow you to dial in the colors and the tones that you want. And this is what this is mimicking. So we can slide between yellow and blue to make it more yellower or bluer. And the same thing with magenta, cyan, red, green. I like the colors here as they are, but if I wanted to, I could maybe add a little bit more red to have his skin be a little less gaunt. There we go. And again, I'm not going to go through every single slider. Dehancer has some really great videos for each of these sections on their YouTube page that goes into what each of these sliders does and why it does it, you know, what it's meant to mimic. So check that out if you want more detail, but I'm just going to show you how I got this image. We turned off film grain because it's a little bit intensive if you don't have a super powerful computer, but basically what they're doing and what sets Dehancer apart is that they are deconstructing your image and building it back using the grain. Instead of just having a grain overlay texture and putting that onto your film, they're deconstructing it and rebuilding it using the grain, which is so important because that's how actual film works. And so that's why the grain here just looks so good. So I'm going to start here with this film resolution slider. This is going to determine how soft your film looks or your footage looks. All these shots are in motion, so it's not going to be great for demonstrating purposes, but you can see over here, there's a lot of detail in his facial hair and here too. And if I undo it so it goes back to the lowest resolution, you can see all that detail is gone. So higher resolution, we can see individual hairs here, and now it's much softer. And again, that's just to mimic the different sizes of film. So that's your resolution slider. I'm going to leave that at around 25% because I think that mimics the 16 millimeter softness pretty well. The one thing I will say I wish that the Dehancer had is I wish they had some presets here in the film grain to say like Super 16 millimeter, 35 Academy, stuff like that, just to give me a good starting point, and then I can dial it in a little bit more myself. But I wish they had some presets. That would be nice. So obviously the amount is the amount of grain. You can see over here how much grain if I crank that all the way up, or very little if I put all the way down. Again, I'm going to put this at around 25%. And then the size of the grain. This is gonna, different film stocks have different size of grain. 500T, which is more sensitive to light, has larger grain than 50D or other type things. So I'm gonna bump this up to about half. And then down here we have a film type slider. So if it's negative film, which the Vision 3 line of film is color negative film, we can leave that for negative. If I'm shooting on Ektachrome or want to mimic Ektachrome, I can change it to positive, and you can see a lot of the grain in a lot of the lighter areas just sort of goes away. All right, now on to two tools that I love that aren't available really in the other pieces of software, and this is Halation and Bloom. All right, real quick, a little pseudoscientific explanation on why halation happens. If you've ever shot with Cinestill 800T film, you're familiar with halation. It's essentially that little red bloom, the little red bit of light that happens around really bright light sources. And the reason that's happening is that, you got a test roll of film here. When you're shooting on film, you have the backing. This is just the support for the film, and then you have the actual emulsion. The emulsion is what gives you the image. This is just here to support it. But what can happen sometimes is if you have light that's really bright, it'll go through the emulsion, through the backing part of the film, bounce off the back of your camera and back through the backing part of the film, which if you've ever seen color negative film, it has like sort of a brownish reddish hue. And because it's bouncing back through that, it'll cause that little bit of red around the really bright lights because it's coming through some reddish plastic stuff. It just adds that little bit of realism. If you're trying to mimic film, this is going to go a long way. And along with that, we have Bloom down here, which is essentially that little bit of diffusion you see around really bright light sources. So let me enable that. You can see that's there. If I go back into mask mode, you can see everywhere that it's happening. A little bit goes a long way with this. Don't go crazy with it unless you're trying to get that really stylized, like diffused look. But for me, just that little bit of bloom goes a long way. So there it's on, there it's off, on, off, on. It's just a little chef's kiss. It just looks so good. And you can do this in camera by using a diffusion filter like Black Pro Mist or Pro Mist filter or the Cine Bloom or whatever they have. But I like the ability to add it in post and have it look good and have the option of whether I want to do that or not. Then you have a few other tools like Vignette, Film Breath, and Film Breath is the almost like the change in exposure between frames that you see with film sometimes. And then Gate Weave, which is, if you've ever seen Super 8 film, it's very apparent with more consumer-based home movie type cameras, film cameras, but it's when the frame bounces around because as the film's going through, it's not perfectly straight unless you're using a really high-end motion picture film camera, and so it's bouncing around a lot. And so it's good to add that for that little bit of extra realism if you're really trying to mimic film. And then there's a few other things like false color. You can generate a LUT based on the color. It's not going to add in, the LUT's not going to add in the effects that I just talked about, but it can help you emulate those colors so you can pull the LUT into Premiere or wherever you would like. This took a long time to explain because I'm walking through, but I can get this look within 2 minutes using Dehancer, and I love it. And the other great thing is that if you're actually shooting with film, if you're actually shooting on 16mm film, Super 8 film, and the people who are scanning your film provide you with a log or a flat scan of the film, Dehancer is great at color grading that film quickly. So let's address the elephant in the room. For the full Dehancer Pro, everything that we talked about is $400. You can buy Dehancer Lite or buy individual things like just the grain or bloom or halation plugins that are cheaper, but if you want the full shebang, it's $400. It's expensive. I'm not going to deny that, but if you're just a hobbyist, it's probably not worth spending $400 on this plugin. But if this is something that you do all the time and this seems valuable to you, I think it's totally worth going for it, because I can already tell you from using this on 2 different projects already, the ease of use, even though I have to go between 2 pieces of software, just the ability to get the look that I want in such a quick and easy way is worth it for me. Totally worth it. And you don't have to use it to just emulate film. You can use it to color grade your footage. And those tools, I think, are excellent. In conjunction with the other tools that are built into Davinci Resolve, to me, it's a no-brainer. But anyway, I understand why this could be way, way out of the price range for a lot of other people, or you just may not be interested. But either way, I hope that you enjoyed this look into Dehancer and why I love it and why I think it's a really unique and special piece of software in the market of this film emulation plugin world. And if you were thinking about it, give it a try. They do have a free trial. I think that's for 7 days, so you can try it out in Davinci Resolve, see if you like it before you commit spending all that money on it. But that's all. Thank you to Dehancer for sending me this so that I can test it out, make a video about it. And thank you to you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to see more videos like this of my process, of me talking about the music videos I'm making and how I make them, all that kind of stuff, let me know in the comments of a $50 Venmo payment. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.